July 13th, 1943. The Mojave Desert. Test pilot H. Lloyd Child is strapped into a machine that shouldn't exist. He is sitting in the nose of a bullet, with nothing in front of him but empty glass and heat shimmer. There is no engine cowling. There is no propeller. Just nothing. To his brain, it feels like he's floating, but behind him, buried deep in the fuselage, is a 1,200 horsepower V12 engine screaming at his spine. And behind that is a massive three-bladed propeller spinning like a meat grinder. Everything about this plane is wrong. The wings are swept back. The tail is gone. The elevator is on the nose. It's like driving a car from the trunk while looking out the rear window. This is the Curtiss-Wright XP-55 Ascender. It was supposed to be the anti-Mustang, the revolutionary weapon that would delete the Luftwaffe from the sky. Instead, it became the system error of the U.S. Army Air Forces. It was a plane designed to kill its pilot if he tried to escape, a machine that flipped physics on its head, and the singular engineering disaster that took the world's biggest aviation company and drove it into extinction. This is the story of the Ascender, and why the Air Force spent millions trying to make a plane fly backwards. To understand why this plane was a death trap, you have to understand negative habit transfer. Every pilot in 1943 had a motor schema hardwired into their bones. You pull the stick, the nose goes up. You stall, the nose drops. It's the survival instinct of aviation. The XP-55 took that instinct and inverted it. Because the engine was in the back and the elevators were in the front, the center of gravity was totally alien. In a normal plane, a stall is scary but recoverable. The nose drops, you gain speed, you live. In the XP-55, a stall was a violent event. The nose didn't drop, it pitched up. The plane would rear back like a startled horse, flipping past the vertical line, and then tumble end over end. Imagine driving down a highway, hitting the brakes, and having your car suddenly do a backflip. That is the aerodynamic blasphemy pilots were dealing with. Their muscle memory, the very thing trained to save them, became the murder weapon. If they reacted like a normal pilot, they made the tumble worse. But the stall wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was the exit strategy. In a P-51 or a Spitfire, if the plane catches fire, you pop the canopy, roll over, and fall out. The tail passes harmlessly over you. In the XP-55, if you pop the canopy and jump, you are swept back into the slipstream, directly into the pusher propeller. The engineers knew this. They realized they had built a flying guillotine. Their solution? They installed a system to jettison the propeller before the pilot bailed out. Think about that for a second. In a burning, spinning, out-of-control aircraft, the pilot had to pull a lever, wait for a massive explosive charge to blow the propeller off the back of the plane, hope it didn't slice the tail off, and then jump. It was a suicide clause written in aluminum, and the pilots knew it. So why? Why did the Army fund 3 prototypes of a plane that wanted to blend its pilot? The answer lies in corporate desperation. In 1940, Curtiss-Wright was the Google of aviation. They were the Titans. They built the P-40 Warhawk, the plane of the Flying Tigers. But they had a maintenance deficiency. They had stopped innovating. While North American aviation was building the P-51 Mustang, the Cadillac of the sky, Curtiss was still tweaking designs from 1935. They were becoming obsolete. They needed a Hail Mary. They needed something so radical, so futuristic, that it would leapfrog everyone else. They looked at the physics of the future and saw jet theory before jets existed. They knew that sweeping the wings back reduced drag. They knew that putting the engine in the back freed up the nose for guns and visibility. On paper, the XP-55 was a genius move. It was the configuration of the future, but they were trying to build a jet fighter with a piston engine. This leads to the authority gradient. This is the dangerous gap between the people who design the machine and the people who fly it. The test pilots, men like Harvey Gray, warned the engineers immediately. The stall is unrecoverable. The stability is non-existent. The bailout is a death sentence. But the engineers at Curtiss-Wright were suffering from the sunk cost fallacy. They had spent millions. The Army was desperate for a wonder weapon, So they ignored the junior pilots. They pushed the schedule. They kept the funding. On November 15, 1943, that bill came due. During a stall test, the first prototype flipped. It went into that terrifying inverted tumble. The pilot was trapped in a washing machine of G-forces. The engine, that screaming V-12, was shaking the airframe apart. By a miracle, the pilot managed to bail out without being turned into red mist by the propeller. The plane slammed into the desert floor and disintegrated. And the Army ordered 2 more. The pilots, with the dark humor unique to men who cheat death for a living, refused to call it the Ascender. They looked at the backward wings, the backward engine, and the backward flight characteristics, and they christened it the Ascender. It was the ultimate insult. A machine so backwards it didn't know which way was forward. By 1944, the experiment was over. The jet engine had arrived. The Gloucester Meteor and the ME-262 proved that you didn't need a propeller in the back, you just needed thrust. The XP-55 was cancelled. The failure broke Curtiss-Wright. The company that defined World War I and the interwar years never built another successful fighter. They faded into history, a giant killed by its own ambition. The Ascender was their tombstone. But this story has a twist. A wait, what? Moment that changes everything. If you look at the skies over Europe today, you will see the Eurofighter Typhoon. You will see the Dassault Rafale. You will see the Saab Gripen. Look closely at them. No tail, swept wings, engine in the back, small canard wings on the nose. The XP-55 wasn't wrong. It was just right too soon. The aerodynamic layout of the XP-55 is actually superior for maneuverability. The instability that tried to kill the pilots in 1943 is exactly what makes a modern fighter agile. The difference? Computers. Modern jets use fly-by-wire systems, where a computer makes 1,000 corrections a second to keep the plane flying. The XP-55 was an unstable genius that needed a microchip, but all it had was a human with a stick and a terrified nervous system. Curtiss-Wright tried to build a 21st century fighter with 1940s technology. They pushed the envelope so hard it tore open and swallowed them whole. The XP-55 sits in a museum today, looking like a prop from a sci-fi movie. Most people walk past it and laugh at the funny backward plane, but the pilots know better. It wasn't a joke, it was a prophecy. It was a machine that screamed, "The future is coming," right before it flipped over and crashed into the past. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We decode the world's most incredible outlier machines every single week. What do you think? Would you have stepped into the meat grinder for a chance to fly the future? Let us know in the comments below.